John Oehser, NFL Network Analyst and former Jaguar Bucky Brooks, and senior reporter J.P. Shadrick bring you the latest on your Jacksonville Jaguars. Huddle Up starts right now.
And welcome in. It's a very special edition of Huddle Up with Bucky Brooks, back on video for the start of the 2025 league year, and a busy show ahead. Huddle Up with Bucky Brooks brought to you by Fields Auto Group Jacksonville. See Fields first, Jacksonville's premier luxury auto group. And here's what's coming up. The league year underway just about 2 minutes ago. The Jaguars have agreed to terms with 9 free agents. And what's next? What's on the docket after those players have been acquired by the Jags? We'll get to it all coming up. J.P. Shadrick with John Oehser here at the Miller Electric Center in the Hyundai Studios. And Bucky Brooks is out west in L.A. And there you have it. We're going to get to all the 9 players the Jags have agreed to terms with. But it seems like, overall, Bucky, that they've filled some immediate needs for this team.
Yeah, more important than filling the needs, they found guys that could advance the culture that these guys want to create. When you look at some of the players that are being brought over, there are some links and some ties to help Lynn Coleman and company kind of establish the culture, kind of further that and spread the message to the masses. And so, like what the Jaguars have done, because they've flown, I would say, under the radar, and didn't try and win the offseason hype fest, but concentrated really on trying to assemble a really solid team that meshes well with the current players that are already established in the locker room.
This is exactly what I hoped they would be, and exactly what they set out to do. They had 4, 5, 6 spots that they wanted to make sure, Bucky knows what I'm about to say, wanted to make sure you could get lined up, right? GMs like to have a starting roster before the draft to make sure that they don't have to reach during the draft, so that you can go after guys who can truly help for you. You don't want to have a hole sitting there at right guard and have to take a right guard number 3 overall. So that's a bit of an exaggeration, but that's what it's about. I would anticipate 4 or 5 of these guys starting in week 1, and I would anticipate the next couple of drafts being about sending these guys on their way, thanking them, making sure that the pay is commensurate with the reward. Hey, you got paid. We appreciate it. Mm-hmm. They can be part of building this. I think it's significant that a lot of these guys have Rams and Bucks and Vikings connections.
Sure.
That all makes sense. And I think this is what you want to do when you're switching cultures. You have to have guys who understand that culture.
No doubt about that. Let's get to it. And it seemed, at least the guys you're talking about that could be starters next year, offensive line, secondary, seem to be big points for the leadership of the Jaguars. And let's start, Bucky, on that offensive line. After the retirement of Mitch Morse and Brandon Sheriff, it was a focus going into free agency, of course. So Patrick Mekari comes from the Ravens, reportedly 3 years, $37.5 million. He's been with the Ravens the last 6 seasons. We know how they play the game on the offensive line. What does he bring to the table, Buck?
He brings versatility. This is a guy that can line up anywhere on the front line and have success. But more importantly, he brings a guy that the last few years he's played really well at a position. This is a guy that had to jump in and start some games at various spots, held up well, even though he's had some issues with penalties. I mean, he's a rock-solid starter. He is someone that's going to help change the temperament along the line of scrimmage. And if you want to be able to play physical football like Liam Cohen has talked about, you got to have physical blockers, guys that love that part of the game. Mekari is one of those guys that can help kind of change the mindset and the mentality on that front line.
Yeah, you can circle 2 words in what Bucky just said, temperament and physical. That's what this is about. That's what the 2 offensive linemen are about. I don't know that at the end of their careers, if Mekari will be considered a better player than Brandon Sheriff, right, in the arc of their careers. But right now, for this team, what it's trying to bring, they want to be able to pick up 3rd and 1, or at least have the defense believe that they have a chance to pick up 3rd and 1, which sometimes it didn't feel that way. The 2 interior offensive linemen that are expected to start, and I'll get to your guy here in a minute, that's what they're about.
Center Robert Hainsey from the Buccaneers, the other that you're referring to, reportedly 3 years, $21 million. Started every game for the Bucs in 22 and 23. Was a backup last season. And again, John, it's about that that short yardage mentality and idea up front.
Yeah, and again, this might be a case where over the course of their career, is he stratospherically better than Mitch Morse? I don't know. For right now, is he a physical brawler? Fight you, kick you in the teeth, as you'd like to kick me, JP. That's what he brings that maybe Mitch Morse didn't quite have last year. Although Mitch played very well, so it's the run blocking, it's the physicality. This was a decent pass blocking line last year, but this team wants to be able to run, and they want to keep Trevor's feet from being rolled into during pass rush.
And Bucky, he's obviously was with Liam Cohen in Tampa, so familiarity with what they want to get done offensively.
Yeah, familiarity is key, and being a center for Liam Cohen's offense, you want to rely on the center to make a lot of the line calls, the protection calls, make sure that we're always in the right play. Maybe he can alleviate some of that burden that is on Trevor Lawrence to make sure that the team is always in the right protection and those things. But what John was kind of speaking to in terms of his physicality, his mauler brawler style, I mean, let's go back to, I guess I was a teenager when Roadhouse came out and Patrick Swayze was throwing everyone out the bar. That's kind of what you need. Like, you need some of those guys that can do some of the dirty work. We talk about changing the temperament. The only way you change the temperament, you got to change the people up front. And so the guys that we're talking about, Mekari and then Hainsey, we're talking about two guys that are mauler brawlers who love to engage in, I would say, legal fisticuffs at the point of attack.
Yeah, and getting back to the most important part of this topic, say what you want about Roadhouse, JP.
Uh-huh.
When you scroll by and it's on, you always stop for a few minutes, don't you?
Check it out. You know how it's
Patrick Swayze, get him out the bar. We got to clean him out.
You always you can make fun of it, but you always stop. And, on a serious note, what Bucky said about him being able to help Trevor Lawrence, that beyond the physicality, that's a huge part of this. This is a guy who knows the scheme, who doesn't have to think about it. Mm-hmm. There will be times early in the season with Trevor learning a new offense where it may not be second nature. It's second nature to Hainsey. So that's a key.
Another offensive lineman, Chuma Edoga from the Cowboys, started 10 games over the last 2 seasons combined, and Bucky seems like he could add to the depth up front.
Yeah, he certainly can add to the depth up front, but another one that you got to understand, there's a theme that we're seeing. All of these guys are bruisers at the point of attack. As much as I love seeing the dancing bears, the guys that are nimble, that do all the cute stuff and pass pro, at some point, we've seen it the last 2 or 3 years, we haven't been able to run the football effectively when everyone in the stadium knew that we need to run it. Well, the guys that we've added are all what I call mauler brawler specialists at the point of attack. We can move bodies, we can move the furniture around the den, and finally, we should be able to run the ball with any of the running backs that we have in the backfield.
Yeah, and look, when you're changing regimes, it's hard to go after splash in free agency. First of all, thank goodness they didn't. I'm so tired of splashing. I just want to towel off.
Yeah, that's right.
But it's hard to go after splash because you spend all your money up top. When you're changing regimes, it's not just about having 5 offensive linemen. It's about having the 6th or 7th and 8th guy that when guys inevitably get hurt, you feel like you've got veterans who, when the coach turns around and says, who's next, they don't want to have a bad look on their face going, who's next? You want to make sure you have guys who can play. So a lot of this was about making sure this is not a 22-man game. This is a 53-man game, and you had to get the 37th guy on your roster better to where they know what they're doing. Back when they changed before, JP, you remember, I guess it was 12 or 13 when Dave and Gus came in.
That's 13, yep.
Looking back, people involved with that said we cut to the core too much and we were too young. It's hard to draft and develop and have a functional roster when all your players that you're turning to in a crisis are second-year guys or first-year guys. Clearly, this list, a bunch of 5, 6, 7-year guys, when it turns to crisis and there's injuries next year, they don't want to turn around and be turning to kids. You have to have some grown men in the lineup, and that's what these signings were about.
Yeah, look, it's about adding some maturity and experience to that room, but also having guys that are experienced enough to play, but not on the tail end of their careers. At some point, you want to have an offensive line that can grow together, that can kind of move into their prime collectively as a unit, as opposed to kind of piecemealing the offensive line every year. Hopefully, we can get some of that continuity and consistency up front, and that will allow the offense to play at a high level for years and years to come.
Let's move along now to the secondary. That certainly was a focus with, not a lot of names really locked into starting spots in the back end of the defense, at least going into free agency. Well, they got a couple names now. Jourdan Lewis from the Cowboys at the nickel spot, 3 years, $30 million, a reported deal, 20 of that guaranteed. And Lewis really gets some high marks for his play in Dallas, Bucky, over the years in the nickel spot.
Yeah, he deserves high marks. He played well last year. Last year was probably the best season of his career. He had more opportunities to not only play inside but playing outside. Having watched him, because this is someone I watched as a teenager at camps and these things, always been a high IQ player, a feisty, very competitive player. He is going to challenge guys on the opposition, but he's also going to challenge our guys to step up and kind of add a little nastiness and swag to their game. Really good player. And when I talk about being a good player, I'm talking about the IQ, the diagnostic skills, the ability to read and react quickly. Jourdan Lewis may be listed as a nickel, but most teams talk about the nickel being the 12th starter. This is a really, really good starting nickel cornerback, one of the best in the league.
Yeah, as we talked about with the offensive line, both of the secondary additions were basically, as you alluded to, JP, being able to get lined up. I mean, realistically, on Saturday, Tyson Campbell was your starter, and after that,
that's about it. Yeah, you don't know. Yeah.
So, right. I think Wingard fits. Beyond that, they had to have some guys, and I still think this is a big draftable position. But everybody talked about the line coming into free agency, Bucky. The secondary was a place where I think they felt like they had 4, 5, 6 spots that they had to figure out and upgrade. So I see the draft still being a big deal for this. I didn't mean to get off on the draft, but I still think this was the start of the rebuilding of the secondary, because it probably had as far to go as the offensive line.
I'm with you. Looking at the unit of the last couple of years, think about the number of deep balls that have just flown over top of the defense, the number of blown coverages that we have, the missed tackles in space, all of those things reflect a bad defense, a defense that didn't play well. And last year, I mean, you call a spade, like we were terrible on defense. I would say that there aren't any sacred cows in the back end, with the exception of Tyson Campbell, and some of that will be due to his contract. Everybody's going to have to earn their spot, and it'll be refreshing to see an open competition to determine who are the best 4, 5, 6 defensive backs that need to be on the field in those crucial moments.
So I'm assuming, Bucky, you and I have talked about nickelback before. It's maybe my favorite position on defense just because of the versatility that it takes. And I think it might be as important as a starting outside guys. Is Lewis just nickel? Could you see him ever playing outside, or does it matter? In today's NFL, I guess everybody's playing in such different spots. Maybe it doesn't matter that much.
I mean, like, it matters in terms of what he's most comfortable with. It matters in terms of pay, because the guys on the outside are the ones that make the $18, $19 million like Tyson Campbell. The guys that primarily play inside, Jourdan Lewis, like, they make like $10 million annually. I want to put him in the best position for him to be the guy that we saw on tape in Dallas, and that primarily should be in the slot. Quickness, instincts, awareness, overall feel for pattern reading. He shows all of those things in the slot. He can go outside, but when he goes outside, sometimes the size deficiency can be an issue, but he's a talented player. And sometimes, John and JP, it's about putting the best 5 or 6 defensive backs on the field and then figuring out where they need to kind of slot into to allow the team to match up best with the opponent, while also allowing guys to play their best individually.
The final secondary player, Eric Murray from the Texans, also was with the Chiefs and the Browns earlier in his career. 3 years, $22.5 million, 12 of that guaranteed, and just kind of goes into the discussion of starting caliber players on the back end. The new season is right around the corner, and the time to get your 2025 season ticket membership is right now. Be at the bank for every touchdown. Secure your seats at jaguars.com/tickets or by calling 904-633-2000. Some good ticket buying music. It's Huddle Up with Bucky Brooks, JP Shadrick, and John Ozier. It's the start of the league year. A special live video version of Huddle Up with Bucky Brooks as the clock struck 4 o'clock Eastern. And we are officially now in NFL world in 2025. So free agents are agreed to terms now, and 4 remaining for the Jaguars to get to. All on the offensive side, Dyami Brown, wide receiver from the Commanders, with Kirk now officially traded to the Houston Texans. Gabe Davis coming out of injury. You got to have, John, some guys that can go out there and perform.
Yeah, I think this was I think he starts. I think he's opposite Brian Thomas Jr. and now gives them 2 guys with speed to be able to beat the defense. Once Kirk and Ingram left, which I said before, those moves had to be made, I would have made them. But it did leave you a situation where Gabe Davis, who you're not sure what he's going to bring next year because of injury and because of production last year, and then Parker Washington, I don't know that he's quite front-line reliable guy yet. I think he's still moving toward that. So, Bucky, this guy really came on at the end of last year, shined in the playoffs. The cynics would say not a lot of production so far. Where's he at?
Well, the number one thing, he kind of breaks the jinx because the Jaguars haven't been as good as they could be because they hadn't had enough Tar Heels on the roster. Well, now we finally got a Tar Heel wide receiver on the roster. I feel like things are looking up. Dyami Brown is a big play specialist. He really came on like gangbusters in the postseason, had 14 catches, averaged about 17 yards per catch, and just looking at the B-roll in the clip, his speed is real. Now you have an opportunity to put 2 fast guys on the perimeter, and if we can establish the running game, and we've seen Trevor's at his best when he's able to run it, play action, pull it, and throw it down the field. We need more explosive plays because explosive plays lead to points. Dyami Brown as a point scorer should help this offense.
Yeah, I thought they've had about the right number of Tar Heels on the roster lately, JP. But
they haven't. We haven't been able to win. We don't have enough guys that have pedigree. We need pedigree players to be able to get it done.
Are we playing hoops? Or?
I don't know what we're playing.
Doesn't matter. Tar Heels, pedigree is all there.
By the way, Brown with 308 yards in the regular season as a whole, 229 in the playoffs, including a 98-yard game against Detroit and a touchdown with 89 yards against Tampa in the first week of the playoffs last season. We go to tight end now. A pair of tight ends come in. Johnny Mundt from the Vikings, Hunter Long from the Rams. Bucky, well, you got to have some tight ends if you're going to play in the NFL. What do you like about these guys?
Well, what I like about him is, one, the familiarity. Like, you have guys that have come over that have been familiar with the system that's going to be in place. They know the coach knows them. He understands how to put them in roles to go about it. But what we're seeing is a bit of a change in terms of how the tight end position is used. Instead of being used primarily like Evan Ingram was basically a jumbo wide receiver with a tight end label. Now we're going to get true tight ends, guys that can put their hand in the dirt and do some of the things that we want to see on the edges. Yes, catching passes is a big part of it, but you also got to be able to kind of get down there and get your nose dirty. And so now the combination of guys that we have at tight end, plus Brendan Strange last year, you feel like you have a more complete room in terms of having guys that have all the skills that you need when you want to put multiple Ys and Fs and flexes on the field.
Beyond the physicality, Bucky, is there something to this offense that makes familiarity at the tight end position important in terms of what those guys are asked to do? Is it complex so that it's good for them to have experience running in this system?
Well, and look, it may be complex enough. Like, we won't know until we get up under the hood and see the nuts and bolts of what's going on in OTAs and minicamps and those things that I know you can't wait to look forward to.
Can't wait, bud. Can't wait.
And thinking about running multiple tight end offense and the way, these teams have operated in the past. We think about the Vikings and then the Rams, like, multiplicity is everything. Interchangeability is everything. Having guys that are similarly built, similarly skilled, allows you to really change and kind of rearrange the formations to put guys in the best position to impact the game based on their talents.
And then the final player agreed to terms with the Jaguars, quarterback Nick Mullens from the Vikings. Now will be here to back up Trevor Lawrence. And Mullens has been around a little bit in his career. San Francisco, 3 years. Had some starting time there at 2021 with Cleveland. Now the last 3 years in Minnesota, John. And Nick Mullens coming to Jacksonville.
Yeah, I can't pretend to be able to break down arm strength on Nick Mullens. I can tell you that from a, changing regimes, bringing in a new offense with the age that Trevor Lawrence is at quarterback, I didn't know it was going to be Nick Mullens, but the bullet points on what he brings fits exactly what you would bring a quarterback who you know is going to be the starter. He's been in this offense. He knows Udinski, so clearly Udinski knows that when it's just Trevor and Nick in the film room, clearly they believe if Trevor has a question, Nick can say, well, yeah, here, you go to this guy in this situation, or you're looking for this coming off the edge. Bucky, he's sort of the cookie-cutter backup, right?
Yeah, he's a cookie-cutter backup. He's been in this system for a long time. He understands the ins and outs of it. So that would allow him to get out of the game. But I'm going to be honest with you. I hope Nick Mullens never plays a down in a regular season game for the Jaguars, because that means that Trevor's available for all 17 games. Hopefully we get a chance to see him play 3 games in the preseason. We enjoy it. We feel good about what he's able to do running the offense and being the guy that can help Trevor in the bullpen, because he doesn't have the arm talent that Trevor does, but he certainly has enough to be able to close out games. And when you're looking for backup quarterbacks, you're looking for guys who have to play in a pinch that can get you out of 2, maybe 3 games before the starter returns. He is good enough to do that.
Just hold that tablet on the sideline. That's
we'll
just
see him
fine.
during OTAs too, Bucky.
Yeah,
so,
you'll get a lot of that time. Yeah.
I hope that you're charting. I hope that you're able to chart them and give me like a little hit.
I'll be charting something.
I can see. Yeah, we're gonna chart. We're gonna chart his completion.
Time till end of practice.
Yeah, the clock is the chart. Attention music fans, the 2025 season at Daly's Place continues with the Coral Reefer Band coming up on the 15th. That's 3 days from now. Teddy Swims May 10th, T-Pain May 31st. Tickets at dailysplace.com, and more information on all the shows this spring and summer. Free agents are, I think, expected in the building noir, John, to officially sign the deals, tour the place, and should be some media time as well. We'll have Happy Hour Radio at 4 o'clock tomorrow with James Gladstone joining us live. Lagerman and I will be here in studio with us.
That'll be good. James, as you know, Bucky, and JP was on with us at the Combine, and I find him fantastic to listen to in terms of interviewing, and I think he'll put this free agent class in perspective. I expect him to basically say what we've been saying, which is that it's a group that's going to get you, on a higher level than you were last year in some starting positions. And they've got 21 selections in the draft. And that's where this thing is going to be made or broken moving forward.
Yeah.
I'm almost offended. You guys are getting all this time with the higher ups. I hear John, he has a one-on-one with EVP and the EVP podcast.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then JP, you're sitting under rubbing elbows with the general manager. I've seen these interviews with Liam Cohen, and I haven't had an opportunity to sit down with anybody. Can somebody sit down and huddle up and allow me to ask some questions and do some stuff? I mean, can I get Liam or Tony or James Glasgow? Can I get somebody to come on the show and talk to me?
We need to go back to Starbucks at the Combine, it sounds like.
I was standing near James Gladstone, who I had met maybe once or twice morning. We're on our way over, and it was, I almost got injured how quickly James Gladstone was ready to go over to talk to Bucky. And, I'll be honest, pay a little homage to the King of the Combine. And
I just feel so left out.
It wasn't like Bucky said, "Hey, James, let me introduce you to." It was
took it all.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I sat down and I silently lumbered off.
I love that. Final thought here. What's next now? I mean, they've got this done. Anything else on the horizon here, or is it full speed ahead now to off-season program and the draft? Bucky, what do you think?
all-season program would be our priority because this is a time where the guys are working with the strength coaches. Eventually, you have an opportunity to have an extra mini camp because it's a new coaching staff. And then for the scouting staff is looking if you can find any bargain pickups. Guys that after that first week of free agency, the price tag has come way down, and they're a little more amenable to coming in to compete and to sign a team-friendly deal to be a part of the team. I would look for some of those things to kind of take place as John talked about. Hey, we can get lined up, but you're trying to fully bake it out with some of your backups, some of your special teams candidates that can help you as you're trying to build the most competitive roster that you can have going into training camp.
Yeah, I think anything else will be based on things that happen going forward, maybe players released. And as Bucky said, hey, this is a guy whose contract is way, way down. In terms of the first sort of the part of free agency that they plot out beforehand, they're done. That doesn't mean that you're not looking at the roster every day, and if circumstances change, then you change it. But this is what they think of as free agency so far, and now after that, it'll be moves as merited.
Bucky, thanks for the time as always, and certainly the insight. And we'll catch you again next week. How about that?
No, thanks. Whoever's in charge of the booking team, I'm going to be on the booking team to see if we can get some guests over here, some guys in the building that I can just have some conversations with to figure out what's going on. I feel like I'm getting secondhand information because you guys are privy to all of the guys.
Did they close the airport in Jacksonville?
I don't know. Last time I checked, it was open.
Did they close the Four Seasons?
They have a big one in L.A. too.
Right.
LA, there's like 5 airports in L.A.
Is the Four Seasons open?
Well, not yet, but I mean, I was making the reference that when Bucky comes into town, there's only a certain level of hotel he will stay at.
Okay, so, I didn't get anything in the email saying that the Four Seasons was open because I would like to be invited to the grand opening. If that's the case, I feel like I should be there.
Wouldn't we
the
all?
word is you will have a floor.
Love it.
Thanks, Bucky. All over NFL Network today as well. Bucky Brooks, John Oehser, I'm JP Shadrick. Our thanks to our entire crew, David Cho, Brent Reber, Joe Fortunato, and thanks to you for watching Huddle Up with Bucky Brooks.
Thanks, Buck.
Bucky, still there?
All right, man. We'll see you.
Yeah, buddy. Thanks for adjusting, man.